this in our Siman, but I didn't understand why that like why that would be an issue of Mvatel anyway. What is the
So let me say again. I started the recording again, but so I'll just say the case again. The case is that this is the second preliminary remark that I wanted to say, which is that if you're heating up honey in order to liquefy it, to pour it through a filter to get the bees out of it, well, the bees' flavor is usser. The bees are usser. And the flavor, by heating it, as long as it was cold, it didn't get into the honey. Now it's hot, you're heating it, the flavor is going into the honey, but it's butter. It's butter either because it's a small amount, or maybe even if it's noten tam gam, it's not a good flavor, or maybe it is a good flavor, but whatever. Let's say it's not a good flavor, but there you are allowed to do that, even though it's mevataling an isser. So what's the rationale that you're allowed to do that? This is in Siman Pei Dal, but as no one pointed out, it's mentioned in the Taz. What's the rationale?
that's not your intention.
Right. It's not your intention. And not only is it not your intention, it's
You have a
also
different intention.
you have a different intention. Exactly. You're trying to do something else and it just happens. And also, there's no other reasonable way to accomplish this. There's a case in the Gemara about wine, but B'kitzur, there's no other reasonable way. If there'd be another reasonable way, then do that. Okay. So let me just repeat for the recording the first.
No, yeah. So could, as you repeat it, what if you could? How does that help our positive? The beetle is beetle occurs. This added 2 points you said. How do you fit that into definition of what beetle is?
Okay, that's an interesting angle. It's a nice angle. So the first point we said was that we asked the question about whether it's a Torah prohibition or rabbinic prohibition. And if we say that the prohibition to cause a bittul is only a rabbinic prohibition, that's not the opinion of the Rava, that's the opinion of the Tosfos, so it's only rabbinically prohibited. Then what does it tell us about bittul? It tells us that, I don't know, that's a good question. What does it tell us about bittul? It tells us that bittul is a physical thing that happens, even if there's nothing to do with your intent, kind of. It just happens. You're doing something wrong. Maybe you're doing the bittul intentionally, but it still happens. It's a fact of the world, as opposed to they say you can't marry a non-Jew, because if you do try, the kiddushin is not halal. You can't do it. It's a funny prohibition. It's a prohibition, but you can't ever do it because it won't happen. So bittul will happen even if you do it in a way that you're not allowed to. Maybe that tells us something about bittul. That therefore it's not a construct, but it's a real reality.
Okay, and so you could add saying is, just as you said, bittul is a fact. It has nothing to do with intention.
Right.
Is that what you're telling?
That's what I'm saying as far as the actual occurrence of bittul. Now, the second thing about the honey, we're really not talking about bittul. We're really talking about the prohibition of performing an act of bittul. And the honey is just saying that prohibition isn't occurring, doesn't have any effect on the law, on the permission of mevatling this honey, these bees in the honey. In other words, if your intention is not to create a bittul, but to do something else, and bittul comes along the way, then the bittul will work. Again, it's a reality. It's not something to do with your intention. All right, but let's go. I think that's useful. Thank you, Rabbi Lenz. Now there are three main topics, because there are a lot of topics that we're going to talk about today. There are three main topics that we're going to talk about. One is this question of bittul l'chatchila. Later we'll talk about kama batel versus choser v'nir. Kama batel. Bittul l'chatchila means, can I go ahead and make a bittul, do a bittul act? Kama batel versus choser v'nir is after I already. If something already was batel, is it permanently batel, or can it come back and become asur again? That would be called choser v'nir. Can it lift up its evil head and say, I'm back again, I'm causing problems. Or once it's batel, that's it. So end of the story. So that's the second topic. And the third topic we want to talk about is this is Noda HaTarovet a factor at all? In other words, Noda HaTarovet means, well, can someone tell me what Noda HaTarovet means? Joel? Yeah.
I've got noise in the background, so I don't want to answer yet, but it's good. Conflicting meetings going on here.
Okay.
I guess I'll say people can hear me. It's right. The idea that you were aware that it got mixed in between, right? So, which we saw this with, I think when you're, tochev kaf, right? Did we do that already? When you put a spoon in?
We didn't do that. We didn't do that.
We didn't do that yet. Okay.
Yeah. Not really. Maybe we did a little bit. We mentioned it. But yeah, when you tochev a kaf 2 times, there's Noda HaTarovet means, does the bittul take effect? When does bittul take effect? Does it take effect when I discover that the event happens? Or does it take effect when the objects meet? Immediately. The objects meet, the Isser and the Heter mix together, and boom, bittul happens. Or does bittul happen later when I discover it? And of course, this is a question of whether bittul is a physical occurrence or a halachic occurrence, kind of.
This also came up in whether Hanan happens when when it is noticed.
Also Hanan, when it's exactly. Noda HaTarovet can also relate to Hanan. You're right, it has 2 sides to it. It can create the Chatichat Isser, or it can create a bittul effect. It can work in our favor by creating a bittul. It can work against us by creating a chaticha that's all kulo asur. That's Hanan. All right, let me just start with the Gemara in the Yerushalmi and Truma. Just one line, so I'll just say it. It says, "Kol isurim sheriba alehen shogeg mutarin mezid asurim." So it says all isurim that you put you added to the tarot. You have an isser. Now you basically did a bittul. You caused that isser to be in rov heter. If you did it b'shogeg, it's mutar, and if you did it b'mezid, then it's aser. Now, based on what we said before, what would you say about this law? Is this a Torah law or a rabbinic law? In other words, that there's a distinction between shogeg and mezid, whether your bittul takes effect.
Rabbinic.
Got to be rabbinic, yeah, right. It's rabbinic. And then there's okay. So let's look at I want to look now at the Gemara. Maybe somebody can read I want to start at Talmud Bavli Masechet Beitza Daf Dalet. I can put it up on the screen, maybe. Second. Put off your microphones if you're not talking, or I can do that. There, you're seeing source 3 here. You guys see it? Yeah. So somebody want to read a little bit? Actually, I'm not sure I want to read from there. Wait a second. Yeah, can you start from Amar Rav Matna? Whoever, maybe Noam, you want to read from Amar Rav Matna?
Sure. Amar Rav Matna etzim shenashru min hadekel l'toch hatanor b'yom tov marbe aleihem etzim muchanim umasikan. So Rav Matna says that wood that fell from a palm tree into a oven on Yom Tov, we can add on to those that already burning trees wood that has been prepared and alight them. So the Gemara asks, "V'ha ka mehapech be'isura." The Gemara asks, but the problem is you're turning those into a prohibition because the etzim from the decal, those are considered nolad.
Well, wait, mahapek, I think means like you're turning over. You're moving, you're handling muksa, I think. But
right, you're right. I translated it wrong, but the rationale was right. Yes,
yeah.
You can't do that because you're handling muksa because the etzim are nolad, right?
Right.
Kevan deruba, the Gemara answer is Kevan deruba de hetera ninhu ki ka mehapech be'etera ka mehapech. So the Gemara answers, since the majority of this burning wood is of heter, which is the muchanim wood, you're actually handling heter in the process.
Wait, so wait a second. Let me start here a second. So the case is that somehow your oven got this wood falling into it somehow by a tree that was overhanging it. Now you're going to add wood that was set aside. It's not muksa, and you're going to light it on fire on Yom Tov, and you're going to use it as kindling. You're going to maybe turn it over. You're going to move it around, and they say, well, since the majority is kosher wood, you're okay. It goes by rove. So go on.
Right. The Gemara responds, but that means you're nullifying a prohibition l'chachila. Utnan ein mevatlin isur l'chachila. We learned in the mission that you can't do that. Gemara answers, hane mile b'doraita. So when the Mishnah says ein mevatlin isur l'chachila, it means for biblical prohibitions. Ava b'derabanan mevatlinan. But for rabbinic prohibitions like nolad, like muksa, we can be mevatel l'chachila.
Exactly. So here we're learning this new thing, that this thing that we said, kol isurim sheriba alehen b'mezid asur. Now we're saying, well, that's not 100% true. Even though that's right. Said that in the Yerushalmi in Truma. B'mezid is asur. Here you're doing b'mezid, and it's going to be mutar because of another reason, because it's rabbinic. Okay, go on.
Sorry.
The Rav
Ashi Damar Kol Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin Afilu B'Derabanan Lo Batiel Ma Ika Lameimar. So the Gemara responds, but according to Rav Ashi, who says that anything that can become permitted at some point, even rabbinically, that doesn't become nullified. What's there to say? So in the case of muksa, yes, it's true that in the moment it's prohibited, but once Yom Tov ends, there's no issue. So it's going to become futurely permitted.
Right. So you're not allowed to use it now if you can wait and use it in a heter way. So it's not batel. So we have this other law which we're going to learn later, which is called that it's davar, that it's going in the end to become mutter. It's not batel now. So there's no really bittul going on here. So you have no bittul. So you are back to the same question. You're moving something that's muksa, because even though there's majority of wood here, it doesn't count. So what's his answer?
Hanemile hecha de'ita li sura bena hacha maka kale sura. So he answers that when Rav Ashi had his issue, that was only in a case in which the Isur was like bena, it was present, it was right in front of us. But in our case, since they are here in the case of the wood, they're burned. So it's not bena, which means that it can be bevatel.
I mean, isn't that weird? Isn't that a weird thing? Because is anyone uncomfortable with that? I mean, when is the bittul taking place?
When
After it's not, when it still exists, exactly. Wouldn't we think that the bittul is taking place when it still exists, and that's what gives you permission to start using it? It's almost like, say, it's almost like it would have been better if he had said, we don't need bittul here because even though it's muksa, when it gets burnt, you're not using it. It's just burning up. I don't know. In other words, but he's saying honey. What is this honey mealy? Which honey mealy? Is it the statement that basically we have two choices? Is honey mealy referring to the statement that kol davar sheyesh lo matirin lo batel, that anything that comes to a state of being mutter is not batel? Is that what he says is only in places where it doesn't get burnt up? Or is it the statement asur to mevatel and isser, asur to mevatel and isser l'chatchila, ein mevatel and isser l'chatchila? Is that the statement that is only where it's be'ena? What do you guys say? Well, this is the question of Tosfot. So Isaac, maybe you want to read the Tosfot?
That's a statement.
It is a statement. Maybe you want.
I
Do you
would rather not.
Or would you? Would you read it? Or you don't want
thank
to.
you.
No, thank you. Okay. Yavni, you want to read the Tosfot? Or Josh? I mean, Josh, do you have a good internet connection? Or you not so good? All right. So Yavni, you go for it.
I can do it. Hang on. Looking at the screen share, it's like cut off on the side, so I can either.
Yeah. Sorry.
Look at it in mine.
Look at it in yours.
אין מבטלין איסור לכתחילה, ואף על גב מדאורייתא חד בתרי בטיל, היינו היכא דמערב ממילא, אבל למערבין הוא בידיים לביטולי אסור. דהכי תנן במסכת תרומות, שאה של תרומה שנפלה לתוך 99 של חולין, וחזרה ונפלה לתוכן שאה של חולין, ורבה עליהן בשוגג מותר, בנזיד אסור. דאין מבטלין איסור לכתחילה.
Wait. So go back.
So yeah, but go back or go on? What did you say?
No, go forward. Go back. Explain.
Go back. So it's referring to the line where it says that we don't cancel an isur lechatchila, and it says, and even though deoraita 1 and 2 is batil, is nullified. That's in the case that it gets mixed up by itself. But when one mixes it up with one's own hands, in order to cancel, in order to nullify it, then it's not allowed. Then it's asur, as it is taught in Masechet Trumot about truma, that like a grain of truma that falls in 99.
First of all, it's not that it's asur. Let's look at the language exactly. Hecha de me'arev b'meila. That's where it happened by itself.
Right.
In other words, midoraita chad betray is always bata. That he's not objecting to that. He says, but limar bevehu, to go ahead and do it biyadayim.
Oh,
if you would do that, then levatule asur. That is a forbidden act. He's not saying that bittul doesn't occur, but the act of going and bittling it is forbidden.
Okay, that's an important distinction. But then
he brings this example.
The example is the amount of truma that falls into 99.
Actually, if you look there, it says pachot mimeya, but here he has it as 99. But it's the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
But it's just interesting. Here's it's 99. Shel chulin v'chazra v'nafla l'toch.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. And then one fell in. So what's the status now? So the rule is that truma is batel in 100. So
right. So it's not batel.
Right.
And then more falls in.
What more?
If that more fell in but bishogeg.
No, but is the more chulin or the more truma?
More chulin? Sorry,
Right, more chulin fell in.
more chulin fell in. Yeah.
So now we've got it in 100. Now we've got 1 in 100. We've got the ratio.
Yeah.
So Rava Allah aleihem bishogeg mutar b'mezid asur. So this is our case of marbe. In other words, this is a case where it mixed up together, and then something falls in more.
Yeah.
Right. So then, if it was b'shogeg, it's mutar.
Right.
B'mezid asur.
Right.
Because in mevatlin iser. So he says even where the tarov. By the way, just point this out. He's saying even where the tarov had already happened. I've already got this case of 1 in 99 where it's all usher, but the tarov had occurred. Can I go ahead and add more? Amazing? No. I can only allow, if it happens, then it's okay. Well, then it's not teaching me very much. It's only teaching me that like Hanan didn't occur. Right? That's all it's teaching me. If Hanan would have occurred, then the adding of the 1 wouldn't help. If it's 90, now it would become 100 units of tameh, of truma. So we can imagine that like Hanan maybe doesn't have to take place here. Why not? Because it's dry. Like
dry, right?
It's a dry mixture, and so or it's fully mixed. You could also say a different reason because it's spread out. It's all grain, all mixed together. So one more falls in. There's no section that's more tameh than any other. So it's not like a drop that fell on a piece of meat. So he's telling us that the only thing you're allowed to do is if it did happen, then it's mutter. If more fell in, then it's mutter. But you're not allowed to go ahead and add it and be a dayim, even though a process of mixing has already started to transpire. So go ahead. Hani mili, umishani.
Umishum hachi hepila as. Yeah, that's where we are.
No, umishani. No.
Umishani hani mili b'deoraita aval b'derabanan mevatlim. And that's in the case, and that case that we just listed is in the case of a deoraita prohibition, but derabanan, we can nullify it.
In other words, if the same thing would happen, but it wouldn't be truma, but it would be,
right.
Let's say truma of chutz la'aretz or gvinat akum, some kind of thing that's only prohibited rabbinically, then we could add more.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
משומחי הפילה אסור, דאין מבטלין איסור לכתחילה, אבל הכה לא אמרינן, הכי דשפיר מבטלין לכתחילה. And because of this, then putting it in should be asur because we don't nullify isur lechatchila. But here, when we're talking about the muktzah wood, we didn't say this because it's okay to mevatel lechatchila. Did I read that wrong?
I'm thinking about it. What does hapila refer to? Are there 2 possibilities or only one?
Oh, could it be hapila like they knocked the wood from the palm into the? No.
Well, maybe like hapila. It doesn't right. It says
I think that's referring back to the example in Trumot. It's saying in the Trumot example, if you I guess V'mezid knocked in the extra chulin, then it's asur. But here, in our case of the dekel of the atzei dekel, then it's right. Fine.
In other words, it's marbe. It's. He's saying that the heter here is because it's not the whole prohibition of mevatel iser l'chatchila is starting out with something that's 100% pure iser and 100% pure heter, and then going and mixing them together in such a way that the result is batel, is mutter. In other words, the result is mutter because there was a bittul going on. In other words, taking 100% iser meat and 100% mutter meat and cooking them together in such a way that the bittul occurs, that's what's prohibited. But
wait, is that what he's talking about here?
But when I have a mixture already that has already occurred, like a set of truma fell into 99. The mixture has already started to occur. Now, if I just want to add more to create the bittul in a case that's already happened and it's rabbinic, then I'm allowed.
I don't think that's what the Tosfot are talking about in this in this little bit, though, is it? I think they maybe bring that up afterward.
Well, no, he said, because didn't he say? Well, first of all, the case of 99 is a case where it's already happened, right?
Right.
Right, you can't do amazing. Umeshani hani mili b'duraita. Midurabanan, you could go and mevatel.
Midurabanan, not meaning like you're allowed to do it midurabanan, meaning in the case where the isur is only asur midurabanan, that's when you're allowed to go back and mevatel.
Aval b'duraita, in a case where it's, I'm sorry, b'durabanan, when the isur is an isur rabanan, mevatlin, even lachatchila. Maybe I said it wrong before. Umeshani hepila is, and therefore when it says that you threw that if you intentionally threw in, ein mevatlin isur lachatchila. Aval hacha, but in our case, lo amrinan hachi, dishaper mevatlin lechatchila, because it's a rabbanan. But
right, so in fact, like it could seem like it seems like he hasn't brought. They haven't.
You're
haven't brought
right.
up.
I jumped. Maybe I did go. I jumped. Maybe I said before we read it. So read on.
ואם תאמר לעיל גבי עגול דהווה תרומה דרבנן יוסיף עליו ויבטל, ויש לומר.
No, there's a case somewhere. There's a case previously. Doesn't matter what it is, but where there was something that was rabbinic and it was batel, and it wasn't batel. In other words, it fell into a mixture. Some rabbinic prohibition fell into a mixture, and it wasn't batel. Why didn't we over there say so? Just add some more and fix it.
Right. Oh, why didn't they say right?
Why didn't they say? Why didn't the Gemara say just add more? It's rabbanan. Yosifu alav yivatel. Just throw in some more. Anytime a rabbinic isser falls in your pot, just add some more food and everything's fine.
ויש לומר, דהדה אמר בדרבנן מבטלין, היינו בדבר שעיקרו מדרבנן, כגון מוקצב, ועיקרו אינו אלא מדרבנן. אבל בדבר שעיקרו מדאורייתא, כגון תרומה, דאיכא שום דבר דאורייתא, כגון דגן, תירוש ויצהר, אפילו במקום שאינו אלא מדרבנן, כגון בשאר פירות, אין מבטלין. So maybe it's not exactly a question of b'derabanan or deoraita, but rather something where the essence of the issue is deoraita. Then it's then you're not allowed to mevatel it, even if in the particular case of like the particular fruit is a derabanan isur, because there are cases of truma, the essence of the thing, that are deoraita, for example, dagan tirosh nitzar, then all truma is already, you're not allowed to mevatel it lechatchila.
So the distinction, sorry for interrupting, just want to get it straight. So really what's being added here, or the contribution here is that as you said, the ikar, in other words, we're talking about the object itself. It's not the process. The process follows from the ikar. In other words, the status of the process. We've been talking up until now is bitul d'oraisa or d'rabbanan. The real question is the object d'oraisa or d'rabbanan? And then I don't have the full wording.
And then what level of rabbanan is? In other words, the Tosfos is inventing a whole new concept here, which I don't know if he's inventing it, but he's presenting us for the first time here a new concept, which is there's something called an Isser d'Rabbanan, but that's Ka'ain d'Oraita, and an Isser d'Rabbanan that's not Ka'ain d'Oraita. Like I was saying before, Gvinat Akum is just a gezerah that they just said you can't eat goyish cheese, but it's not based on anything. As opposed to truma in Eretz Yisrael, let's say truma of a banana is not the Torah law of truma, but it's based on the Torah. It's just to be extended the Torah law to include bananas. But even though it's not a Torah law, it's a rabbinic law, but it's an extension of an existing Torah law. So those
So
things,
this is terrific. It's a really brilliant, interesting idea.
it's a very interesting idea. And
So, but I think we have to. I'd like to hear. I started a formulation, but I'd like to hear it better. And then you continued, Rav Nachum, by saying it's in a sense. I don't know if you use the word derivative or second stage. But Ka'ain is, or maybe say Ka'ain is raising it to a certain status. How would you? How I think we need better expression here.
well, he says, the ikaro eino ela midrabanan. Aval
Right.
davar ikaro, it's ikar is like the word root. Its root is deraita. If
I wonder if
the root thing is deraita, I guess you have to say it's still rabbinic. So the rabbis put it in the shrouds of a deraita law, and therefore you cannot mevatel it.
Okay, yeah. But so
Maybe
this is
because
great.
it's
If the Ikaro is Dioraisa, the impact is to say is that the if the Ikaro is Dioraisa, then the impact of Beetle is considered Ka'ain Dioraisa.
right. In other words, I think if it's ikar, if it's derived or if it's sourced in a Torah law, I mean, I could say it simply. They're afraid. They wanted to take on all the habits of a Torah law. That's what their gezerah was. Their gezerah was that truma of the vegetables that are not these things should become considered by the population to be truma called inyanu davar in every way.
Right.
And therefore, the prohibition of doing bittul on it is still applicable to it. You cannot do bittul.
So
But things that are rabbinic, but the rabbis want right.
Right.
But when the rabbi said don't eat goyish cheese, it's not because they want you to think that goyish cheese is the same, is usher. They just wanted you to be aware there's a chashash that there might be some other milk in there. Now they don't mind that you remember that there's a gezerah there. And in other words, the point of that law is not to trick you, is not to make you think that that's a prohibition from the Torah. The point of that law is just to say, don't eat it because it'll lead to mixed dancing. In other words, they don't mind that. They don't mind that you understand that it's not Torah. They don't want to create that.
But in the end,
equation.
We have two types. So let's do it this way. In the end, we're going to say we have two types of deraisas and two types of drabanans.
No, one type of deraita, two types of deraisa.
One type of deraisa, but then you have a derabanan, two types of drabanan. One is ka'ain deraisa.
One is where we gave it all the garments of a Torah law because we wanted to create in the awareness of people that this is no different from any other law.
Help me, give me the line from the Tosfos that or from the.
Well, I'm giving a rationale. He just says the line is here. The ikaro eino ela midrabanan, aval b'davar she'ikaro midoraita kagon truma. Ein mevatlin.
See, that's my problem. My problem is, are you giving too much credence? It's a question. Are you giving too much credence to the reason, as opposed to the status?
I think the reason is correct. I think that the whole purpose of this is that the gezerah is that most people, you ask them, do cucumbers need to be taken truma deraita? And they'll say, oh, in Eretz Israel, yes, but in Chutz La'aretz, they don't. But they're wrong, because even in Eretz Israel, cucumbers don't need truma deraita. The rabbis wanted to create that confusion.
Okay, I got you. I'll go with you, but
it doesn't. I agree with you.
I still would push. The term Ka'ain deraisa is very strong. I mean, no,
Well,
not the Kain Deraisa, like Ikaro
Ikaro,
Deraisa is very
Ikaro.
strong. It's just
I mean, we're asking the question why.
we treat Deraisa matters differently. In other words, I want to go with you, but I'm still
Not
reluctant.
always, not always. Well, first of all, I mean, you could say that this Tosfos is just a technical way of explaining two conflicting Gemaras, and so he came up with a distinction. But I think the distinction distinguishes in a real way. That's what I'm trying
Okay.
to say. And it's
Got
like
it.
chicken and milk is deraita d'Rabbanan. Well, it's d'Rabbanan, but we treat it like deraita. They didn't want people to think about chicken as being different from meat. They wanted to, right. I mean, I'm just saying that. You're right. I can't prove it. But let's go on to this Gemara in Avodah Zarah. This Gemara in Avodah Zarah. So wait, so what did we get so far? We got so far that, sorry, I was just going to say we go on. We got so far that you can't mevatel nishul lechatchila, but you can if it's d'Rabbanan. But the Tosfos says, well, only if it's a certain kind of d'Rabbanan. Only if it's a d'Rabbanan that has no connection to Torah, which is a very big limitation on that heter to mevatel nishul. That's what we got so far. I actually was mentioning something else before about this honey. In other words, what is the status of that? It's tikale. But that's somebody else talks about that, not this Tosfos. But I don't have time to talk about it right now. So let's go on to the next Gemara. It's a complicated Gemara actually. I found it perplexing. Wait, can you? Just a second. I want you guys to be able to see it. Can you still see it? Wait. There. Okay, so you can still see it, Yavni?
It's still cut off on the side for me, but I've got my PDF
Right.
open on the side.
If anyone
so
needs it, tell me and I can rearrange it because I gave myself a cut version of it. Would somebody like to read this Gemara? I'll help you out. Asher, you want to try?
Hold on, let me make sure I've got the right place. I'm also looking in my.
Here, I'll give you mine for a minute so you can look at it. It's Avodah Zarah. Ayin Gimel.
I'm on Ayin Gimel Aleph. Talan Yain Nesech Asur ve'oser bechol shehu. My love da kana feel isura lago itira lo da kana feel itira lego isura.
Or translate.
Okay. So it's citing the Mishnah. It says, okay, so you have Nesech Yain is asur, and any amount of it is going to make all the other wine also asur. But it's not talking about when what's asur fell into what's mutar. Wait, that seems backwards. Like that's translating, but it's not really making sense.
Yayin nesech oser asur. Obviously, it's asur. V'oser b'kol shu. It can forbid in any amount if it makes
any amount. Okay.
Now we say yayin b'yayin, umayim b'mayim. That's when we said kol shu. If it's min b'mino, yayin b'yayin or water and water, and yayin and wine and wine. But
if it's
yayin b'mayim. When it's water and wine, or the opposite, mayim b'yayin, then it's min be'eno mino. Then what? Then it's b'noten tam.
Okay.
Then it's not mashu; it's noten tam. And zehaklal min b'mino b'mashu, v'shelo b'mino b'noten tam. So this sounds like a very good support for our old friend. Who was our old friend?
Rabbi Yehuda.
Rabbi Yehuda, who Rashi Paskins like. That yayin, that the things are min b'mino, it's b'mashu. Things that are min b'eno mino is not in tam. We don't paskin like that, but we have this Gemara. We have this Mishnah, even worse. We have this very strong Mishnah here that seems to say it's like. So what's our alternative? If we're going to not paskin that min b'mino is a general rule, we're going to have to say what about this Mishnah?
What the Gemara says, you mean?
I don't know if right now I'm not. No, just let's think about the Mishnah. What's the possible thing to say? Maybe it's what the Gemara says, not excluding that.
It's a rule only for Yain Nesach. This is
Right.
Yain Nesach has particular rules about it. So.
And what about water and water?
That has to be water. It's infected
Water.
with Yain Nesach is what we're talking about there.
Or no? Well, how can water be asur?
It's Mayim Nestech.
Mayim nesech. So,
Yeah.
by the way, from the simple reading of the Mishnah, just from the fact that it includes water and wine, are we talking about yayin nesech that's just non-Jewish wine that we have a chashash that maybe he had an improper thought when he touched it and the rabbis forbidden it? Or are we talking about yayin that was actually brought on the altar or brought on the altar of an idol? Which one, and therefore a Torah prohibition? Which do you think this is?
The latter.
Yeah, it's got to be the latter. Why? Got to be a Torah prohibition.
Because we don't have that chashash issue with water, and we're dealing with them as if they're equivalent.
Exactly. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to say. So the water, because it's talking about water, and water has to be obviously actually put for an idol. So too wine has to be actually put for an idol. And in that case, and in that case only, maybe we say min b'mino is different from min b'she'eno mino. Of course, that's a little bit weird. Why should min b'mino be different from eno? If it's yayin that was actually nesach, why shouldn't it also be aser b'mashu in eno mino? I don't know, but that's what the Mishnah could be saying.
I think we could create a situation where it's like you could tell that it's not effectively there anymore, essentially, right? Versus you can't from min b'mino.
In other words, min b'she'eno mino, it's like a better bittul because it's spreading out. No, wait, no, it's a better bittul. No, it's a worse bittul because it's still it's adding to, like we always said about min b'mino, why it's worse because it's encouraging the other kosher wine is encouraging that treif wine and it's not going against it. So it's a less concept of bittul. Okay, but whatever. However we explain it, it could be that the Mishnah is talking about dafka yayin nesech, and that's actually the way Tosfos understands it. It makes sense. But let's see what the Gemara does with this, which seems to be saying again that yayin is batel, is never batel when it's in other wine, but only when it's in water or something else could it be batel b'noten tam. So let's look at the Gemara. Can you keep reading? Who's reading? Asher. The ki ata, Rav Dimi.
Okay. Where am I? Okay. Ki ata Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is, hold on. I'm going to switch over to my own screen because this is very small for me and I'm getting old.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. כי עתה רב דימי אמר רבי יוחנן, המערה יין נסך מחבית לעבור אפילו כל היום כולו ראשון בטל. So when Rav Dimi came, he cited Rav Yochanan, who said if somebody pours wine, nesech yain, from a barrel into a cistern of wine, even if he does this all day long, the isur becomes less and less of the wine that's being poured into the cistern.
Wait. Rishon batel. What does that mean?
Hold on. It becomes bit by bit. It becomes batel.
Which means what? No.
That the nesech yain, which the nesech yain is the asur. So it's
right.
becoming less and less asur. It's like it's as it goes into the cistern of wine, it becomes more and more mutar.
Well, rishon literally means first batel. So what it means is that the first one that went in is batel, and then the first drop that went in is batel, and then the second drop is batel. And each one is batel ad infinitum.
Doesn't that tie into something we talked about 2-3 weeks ago, when the reason is because once the first drop goes in, it becomes part of the
Heter.
rope.
Right. The first drop fell in, it's batel. Then more falls in. So now we're not talking about mevatli and isser lechatchila. We're talking about the other topic of tonight, which is choser veneer versus what's called also kama batel. The first kama literally means like rishon. So the first one gets batel, then the next one gets batel, and by the end of it, you could have theoretically hundreds of liters of wine that fell into a lesser amount of kosher wine, and it's all kosher.
As long as the first amount fell into something that was more than one, that was more than
Right.
60 times the
As long
amount
as
you
the
first
first
poured in.
amount fell, as long as each amount fell into, as long as the first amount and every amount after that fell into
Well,
something
if
that
the
was
first,
60.
If the first one did, then by definition, so do the rest.
No, unless they were larger. I mean, if they're all the same size, you're right. But
If you're pouring it in, that means each drop. We're saying
yeah,
drop
right.
by drop.
Presumably right. Presumably drop by drop. We're
And
looking at it.
even if he does this all day long, it doesn't matter. Just more and more of the yain nesech becomes
Right.
yain mutar.
So this flies in the face of our Mishnah, which says that yain b'yain is asur b'mashahu. So read the next piece of the Gemara. Tanan. That's our Mishnah.
Okay, Tanan. Yain nesech asur ve'oser. Yain nesech asur ve'oser v'chol shu. My love daka nafil isur alego. Itira lo daka nafil itira lego asura.
So wait, yeah. So when the first question, my love, isn't it so?
I lost my place.
I skipped, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Isn't it so that if something is forbidden falls into something that's permitted, then isn't that what we're talking? What we're talking about here?
No, yeah, exactly.
Aren't we talking about here when something forbidden falls into something permitted?
Exactly. Isn't this a case? Isn't this a case of Isser falling into Heter? And therefore, you've got like the way you described it, a big vat of Heter, and the Isser fell in. And the Gemara
says, no, that's not it. This is where something that's mutar falls into something that's asur.
And what would be the result?
The result would be then it becomes asur because then it's not batel b'shishim. In
other words, the smaller amount is heter, and it's going into the isser. And so when Rav Dimi said rishon batel, what did he mean?
Only if what's falling in is asur, then as it falls in, rishon becomes mutar. But
no.
I think my love dekal nafile surah. I think that's referring to our Mishnah, to the Tanan, to our Mishnah, not to the case of Rav Dimi, like Asha was saying. Am I wrong?
My love. Maybe you're right. My love dekal nafil isur legoy heter yayin nesech asur v'oser v'kol. Well, we didn't talk about nafil at all.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I had it backward.
Maybe you're right, but I'm sorry. What the only problem I have is, but Noam's agreeing with Yadi, so I'm probably wrong. If we had a Sanhedrin here, you'd win the vote. So my love. So you're saying when the Mishnah, which Mishnah? You're saying not the Rav Dimi statement, but the Mishnah statement that Yayin Nesech is asur b'mashahu is when it did not be isura legoy hetera. Well, what? Okay. Lo, the kanafil hetera legoy isura. That's when it's asur.
Right. That's when it's never muvato.
I think that's what I was saying. Okay, fine. And then what was Rav Dimi saying? And how does so how do we explain Rav Dimi?
Whereas Rav Dimi's case is that the Yisrael fell into the heter, and then it can be mavato.
Right, but if the heter falls into the isur, then it's asur.
Then like if you have a pot of isur and you drop, even if you drop like a lot more heter in, it's already a pot of isur like from the beginning, that's what we're considering an isur. You can't then drown it out with heter. That's what they're now saying in the Gemara. The Mishnah is talking about in order to like limit with the Mishnah's scope. I think.
I think Rashi reads it the other way.
Oh,
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Joel.
I think so. Right. It says, right, Rashi says, oh, I gotta find it again. The hetera legoy isura, the kama de hetera batile. Right.
I
So
had
he's
a lot
reading,
of, as I told you, I had a lot of trouble with this Gemara.
he's reading Rav Dimi as right, Rishon Batel, as saying we're talking about hetera into isura. At least that's the way I read the Rashi.
Let's all read the Rashi together. Which so we'll skip the Rashi's wait, Ayin Gimel. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph. So yeah, I do have okay. So which Rashi do you want to look at? Rishon, that one?
No, I was thinking about hetera lego isura. I haven't read all of them, so I haven't followed Rashi's entire malach here, but
so where is hetera lego isura is what we're saying. So when he says my love deka nafil isura lego hetera. So the first Rashi lego hetera. Velo amrinan kama batele berov. And what do you want to say? The Mishnah is not saying kama. Is that how you read it? What does Rashi mean to say when he says?
I think that's what he's saying. He's saying the question says, well, the Mishnah doesn't say kama batil leberov, and then its response is no. We're talking about the case of Rav Dimi. I think this is what he's saying. Hetera legoy surah. The kama de
hetera batile.
So I think
right.
He's saying
that's the way I read it. Thank you. Thank you.
You misread Rav Dimi essentially. Not
exactly.
you. I mean,
right.
Yeah, the Gemara.
So wait, do you guys agree with Rashi now, or
no? I think you might be looking at the wrong Rashi. You're looking at the hetera lego isura, right?
No, there's one before it also.
Right. So those are the wrong Rashis to look at because those are just explaining the cases of what it means for hetera to fall into isura. What you need to look at is the mylav chamar de isura lego. Is that, or is that for the next? Oh, that's for the next one. That's the next case.
Yeah.
That's the Tashma.
Just a second.
Yeah, ignore me. That's for the Tashma.
The Rashi at the beginning says Rishon shenafal batil beyain kasher shebabor. Is he then going to say that like we then reinterpret it in the v'mutar ba'ana'ah?
Well, listen, let me try reading it to you guys and see your reaction. Okay, so we'll go with one reading and we can try another one too. So let's try this again. V'ki ata Rab Dimi amar Rabbi Yochanan amar yain nesach mechavit lebor afilu kol hayom kulo rishon batel v'tnan yain nesach asur v'oser b'kol shehu. But how could he say that it's not batel? How? Because our Mishnah says my love deka. Now I read it. My love deka nafil isura legoy. There isn't the case that Rav Dimi talking about that Isser fell into heter, and it's kama batel, and each one that goes in is batel because it's falling into heter. It's falling into a large vat of heter. And lo, no, that is the true normal thinking. What you would think he was saying, but lo, the ka nafil hetera. It's a strange case. It's that the hetera, the nafil hetera legoy isura. It fell into isur, and what Dimi is saying is actually that kama is oser, because it's nafil heter into a large vat of isur, and each time it goes in, it's gonna be added to the isur, and it'll become usur, and Afilu kol hayom, it's going to be oser. In other words, even if you did this to the point where the heter that's going in is so large that it overpowers the isser that is on the bottom, it's still not going to overpower it. It's still going to be usser. And that's the way I understood it. The tashma. Wait, Joel, you want to say something?
It's a weird reading. It's definitely how Rashi's reading it, but it's a weird reading because it switches the subject in its answer.
Why
think
was
you have-
subject?
Because
No, the
when-
Kiddush is that Rev Dimi is actually just saying Rishon Aser. I mean, but I don't know why you're saying it's switching the subject. I don't know what you mean.
Because when the Gemara asks my love de kad nafil isur lego hetera, that refers to the Mishnah, right?
Well,
Because they just quoted the Mishnah.
It could refer to
So
Rav
is it-
Dimi.
No, I don't know why it's reversed. The Mishnah didn't talk about Nefila. The Mishnah didn't talk about Nefila. It just said Oser B'Mashahu.
But
The
the
word
next
nef-
part is definitely talking about the Mishnah because it talks about the falling in the water, and then it has the same construction.
Well,
and
let's read the
says
next part. Let me
also-
read the next. Let me read the next part. But I think that the word Nefila is a clear reference to Rav Dimi because there's no Nefila in the Mishnah. The Mishnah just talks about it's Oser. It doesn't say which one's on top, which doesn't say there is no on top or bottom. It's just
Except
a general rule.
There's no nefila in Rav Dimi case either. It uses the word mehareh.
Well, ma'areh, it means you're pouring, and gravity works by going down, so it's falling.
Right, but then in the Mishnah's case, you're going to say like yain bin was it mayim b'mayim yain b'yain? Like there has to be a direction there. Something has to be put in first, unless you're saying that you're pouring them in at the same time, which I don't think that's the case they're imagining.
You're right. I agree with you. There is a implied gravity at work in the first place too. But all right, I'm just saying. Anyway, Rashi is the way I
Wait,
read it.
Is it possible that the confusion is that when the Gemara says my love, it's actually talking about both Rav Dimi and the Mishnah, saying that's the problem. They're contradicting one another.
Well, that is the definite.
Aren't
That's
we
exactly the point. That's exactly
Right.
the point.
So it is saying, it is talking about both. You know, aren't we talking about when something forbidden falls into something that's mutar?
You want to say, and
Mishnah
both of
says-
them are talking
the
like
Mishnah,
that.
The Mishnah,
No,
the
we have to
Mishnah says it doesn't
distinguish.
matter. It's forbidden anyway. And Rav Dimi brought a case where Rav Yochanan said, but it's fine.
And so we're giving an ukimta to Rav Dimi. That's the way I'm reading. We're giving an ukimta. We're restricting the case of Rav Dimi to only a case where to only creating Isser, not to creating Heter. Let's read the next part. Let's see if it works. Tashma, yayin b'mayim b'noten tam. So this is the continuation of our Mishnah. Yayin again. Yayin b'mayim b'noten tam. So if it's min be'eno mino, then it's noten tam. My love deka nafil. So now you're saying, for sure, it's talking about the Mishnah. My love deka nafil chamra the isura lamaya de hetera. Isn't that the very same case of Rav Dimi? You have to say. I hear you're different. I hear the right. You have to say my love deka nafil chamra de isura lamaya de hetera, which is again a case of. It's a case, sorry, isn't this a case like what you tried to say about Rav Dimi? You tried to say that Rav Dimi was saying that it's. Wait a second. According to this, Rav Dimi would he ever be saying it's not batel? He'd be saying Rishon Oser. I see the difficulty. Yeah, I told you.
But it's a different case though. Rav Dimi is talking about min shebemino, and this is now talking about min she'eino b'mino.
Right. So let's read on. My love deka nafil chamra de isura lemaya de hetera lo deka nafil chamra de hetera lemaya de isura. So what? The chamra de hetera lemaya de isura. Well, I don't think we can. Maybe this reading is difficult. Let's go. Here's really my question. Let's go on. Let's go on to the bottom here, and let. Oh, you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry. I think I got it.
Yeah.
This is defending my reading using Rashi.
Okay.
I think
I'm starting to think that you're right because it does make sense based on this on a tashma, like Yavli was saying.
So when the Gemara is asking my love the kana feel isur lego hetera, it's referring to the Mishnah, right? Doesn't the Mishnah mean when we're having isur fall in the heter, and yet in that case the Mishnah says it's batel b'mashahu, right? Or it's isur b'mashahu, right? Or b'notantam, whichever, right? But Rav Dimi says it would be kama, right? So when the Gemara says lo deka nafil heter lego isura, it's still referring to the Mishnah, but it's thinking the opposite case, where you have a vat of nesech and drops of mutar wine fall into it, and that's where Rashi is getting the kama tetera batiole. Those drops of wine are being nullified within the isur,
and then they're becoming usur. But that
exactly, as opposed to the
but then
opposite
where's the mashahu?
case.
Where's the mashahu? Where's the usur b'mashahu?
The asur b'mashahu is every time the heter drops into the isur, boom, it becomes prohibited. As opposed to Rav Dimi's case, where it's the isur into the heter, there we say kama batel.
Okay. I don't have, well, I have to look at it again. I actually had a lot of time on it, and I thought I really had a good reading of this Gemara, but we got to go on because I got other things to do. But let's just look at this last line, the underline here. Ki ata Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef amar Rav Yochanan amar yayin nesech mitzartzor katan lebor afilu kol hayom kulo rishon batel. So he has a similar statement also in the name of Rav Yochanan, but he adds one word which helps us maybe. Mitzar tzor, like a small pitcher, a very small pitcher. Then it's a filu kol hayom rishon batel. Why? And the dafka tzar tzor katan v'lo nafish amudeha, that the pouring that comes out of it is very thin. Aval chavit, but if it wouldn't be so thin, like a chavit, lo. Now, I don't see any difference really. Like even Rav Dimi could have meant that. Like he says, a yain mechavit lebor. Maybe he meant a chavit with a small hole. I mean, fine, it's a pitch. But is there any essential difference between whether it's a quick rate or a slow rate? It seems strange to me that this is any different. Actually, the Rishonim understand that I think that all of these opinions are pushed off. In other words, we're going to ignore Rav Yochanan entirely. But let's look at this. Let's look at the Tosfos. Basically, let's just leave it like this. There seems to be a machloket between the Mishnah and the Gemara about whether Rishon is batel. Say again?
Could it be about whether it's coming out in drips or a steady stream?
It could be, but the word amudeha is a column. Its column is small. The lo nafish amudeha. It sounds to me like it's a continuous pour, even with the small pitcher. But you're right. That might be irrelevant.
There's another Mishnah that makes that distinction.
Who makes?
In Ochlot, there's
Who makes that
something
distinction?
about. There's a Mishnah where blood pouring out of a dead person, if it drips, then it's the same kind of thing of Rishon Batel, and if it pours out, then it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally a known idea and it makes sense. I don't know if it's exactly what it's saying here. I would be hesitant, but maybe it would offer us a insight. Let's go on. Wait. The key other yayin nesek mechavit lebor afilu kol hayom kulo rishon batel. Perush afilu mitar afilu mitrabe hayayin nesek lebesof. Even if the yayin nesek at the end becomes more than the heter wine, mikom makom amrina rishon batel. So you could actually have a situation where Rav Dimi is saying where you'd have more yayin nesech, but because it battled along the way, it's mutter. Mash mehafa, the Rav Dimi savar kama batil. It sounds like from here that Rav Dimi thinks kama batil. Well, yeah, that's what he said. Rishon batil. V'teima. So actually, wait, let me check if I wanted to skip this just a second. Yeah, I want to skip this. V'yesh lomar. He's just going to bring why this is an internal contradiction. But let's go on to this yesh lomar. V'yesh lomar. De bishmati nami de ka'amar rishon batel hainu afilu sheyipol sham kol kach min hayayin nesech bein hakol shelo yeh heter beheter samech. Aval im nafal kol kach min hanesech l'sirugin, even if it's in sirugin, in discrete units. Bein hakol she'ein behet afilu l'sirugin. Bein hakol she'ein beheter samech kedei levatlo asur mishum de nimsa min et mino v'no'er. So he's saying like this, that when it says when Rav Dimi says that Rishon is batel, afilu kol hayom, he just meant that it shouldn't get to the point of being noten tam. But if it would ever become noten tam, if it would be samech, then at that point it would become asur. That's the way I understand it. You understand what I'm saying? Shelo yeh beheter shishim, aval im nafal kol kach, min hakol she'ein beheter kedei levatlo asur mishum dedimsa mino. In other words, the even though it was batel before, it actually joins up with the new yayin nesek that comes in, and you can never reach a level of being 60. So when he said afilu kol hayom, he meant as long as there never was a total amount of Isser falling in that was more than a 60th. As opposed to the Mishnah, which said it's Asr b'mashahu. You can say, well, what's the Chiddush? But the Mishnah says Asr b'mashahu. He's saying it's not Asr b'mashahu. It's like Asr, right. But then you can say it's, let him just say it's Asr b'shishim.
But then why would it be afilu kol hayom?
Yeah, agreed. Let's read it again. The shmat in nami de ka'amar rishon batel hainu sheyipol sham kol kach min yayin nesech bein hakol, among all of it, shelo yeh beheter samech, shelo yeh beheter samech. Wait, am I reading this wrong?
I wonder if the kol hayom is kind of an exaggerated statement a little bit, right? It's like you think it's mashu. No, you could add all day as long as you never exceed the 60.
That's the way I said it. But wait, let's read the words again. Here, Joel, read for me these words again.
V'yesh lomar de b'shma'itin nami de kamar rishon batel What does that mean? Hainu ad she polsham kol kach mina yain nesech.
All right, there's a correction here.
Yeah.
That's a term, yeah.
So I read it. I know you usually don't. I don't read the parentheses, but I did it here. So
Yeah, I think this. I accept that.
Yeah.
I think it's the right to read. It's just.
So, yeah. Sham kol kach mina yain
Oh,
nesech.
here, let me fix it.
Oh, we're correcting it.
Yeah.
Wrong language. Ad shelo yipol. Yeah. That's better.
That's the correction on the side of the page by
Yeah. This is the Bach.
by
Rav Nachum, we can't hear you.
I don't know who it's. I think it's by the Nasara Shas, but
Okay.
usually anyway.
All right.
So read it again from the beginning.
All right. Yeshlomar. Devashma'itin nami de kamar rishon batel. What does that mean? Hainu ad shelo yipol sham kol kach min hayayin nesech ben hakol shelo yeh beheter shishim. Right. That means that we never get to a 60-to-1 ratio in it, or
Right.
less than 60. Aval im nafal kol kach min hayayin nesech lesirugin ben hakol she'ein beheter shishim kedei levatlo asur. Mishum de matzah min et mino v'nior. So even if you add it in parts, you don't add, all at once, but you add it and it gets up to, but totally you get up to 60-to-1 or 59-to-1 or something like that, right? So you no longer are able to overpower the Isur. The two Isurim find each other and they combine
But again, I mean, still my question: why didn't he just say, "No, I don't agree with the Mishnah. It's 1 in 60."
I think because he's making an exaggerated statement.
Uh-huh.
He's saying,
Okay.
I think so. That's not crazy, right? You say, B'mashu, no, you can add it all day. Like,
Okay. Well, that's it. Now let's read on. B'teida shekenhu vadai lo. Wait. B'teida shekenhu de'i lo teimahachi. Because if you don't say it like I'm saying, v'ki im haya adam ma'arei chalav b'kedera shel heter ma'at b'sirugin. Slowly. And this is for Josh b'sirugin, even if he did it in separate discrete units, ad shenitbrabeh hachalav lebesof kol kach shaya bo v'noten tam, till the point where there's milk and meat and there actually is flavor being transferred l'kedera. V'ki tale al datcha, and would you even suppose shehu mutar mishum kama batil? So here is like a rhetorical device. He's saying, common sense, fellows. It can't be that you're going to have a situation where it's actually batel forever. It can't be. Don't tell me this kama batel. Elavadai lo amrinan kama batil. Kevan sheyesh kol kach min ha'isser lebesof shehu noten tam. If by the end of it, it's all noten tam, you can't, in other words, if by the end of it, it's giving flavor, then it's awesome. All right. So he basically, what does he do? Where we stand with the Mishnah and Rav Dimi? I mean, in the end, it kind of comes out that neither are right? The Mishnah tried to say, did I lose the Mishnah? No. The Mishnah tried to say, Asur b'mashu. And Tosa says, Rav Dimi's meant the 60. What about the Asur b'mashu? And what's the halacha? Depends whether we hold like Rav Dimi or not. If we hold like Rav Dimi and we hold like Tosos in Rav Dimi, then it's really shishi. Right? That's the math. You guys want to take a break or should we just keep going? What do you say?
I'm happy to keep going, but
Yeah, we may as well keep going, I think. So, I think, but I don't know. We want to take a break? Other people? Isaac? Andre? Mr. Bruckner, you're okay? Okay. So let us leave these sources. We got a pretty good handle on them. We didn't get every detail of them. We'll leave room for next time we learn. But let's go to, you know what? We're gonna just have to go straight to Shulchan Aruch. Although I had some things interesting in the. So let's look. Turn to the Shulchan Aruch, and let's go to Kuf, Tzadik Tet.
In the Shulchan Aruch, you said?
Yeah, let's do the Shulchan Aruch because I know I gave you to learn it. I hope you learned the Beit Yosef. There's a lot of interesting things there. There's the Darkei Moshe where he talks about Noda HaTarovet, but I think we'll see it in the Shulchan Aruch. So let's look at the Shulchan Aruch. So hey, Tikva, you want to read maybe? Are you available?
Sorry, I'm listening in, but not actually in the text.
Okay. Someone else. Isaac, you want to read? Just the Shulchan Aruch here. Let me stop my share. Wait.
Okay. Seif Hey. Mevatlin isur lechatchila. So lechatchila, you can't do anything to make an isur turn into heter or bibatel. V'afilu nafal letoch heter she'ein bo shi'ur levatlo, ein mosifin alav heter kedei levatlo. So even if it fell into heter and there's not enough heter in order to make the isur batel, you don't add heter into the pot or whatever in order to batel the isur. So there's no, oh, but I won't be able to eat it. Like, let me get out of this situation. No, we don't batel isur lahatchila. Avar ubitlo, o sheriba alav, im b'shogeg mutal, ve'im b'mezid asur. Okay, so if it already was batel, or if they did add something on it, or if something was added to the heter and now it's the isur is batel, if it was done accidentally, the food is permissible. If it was done intentionally, it's aser.
So who is it? Who is it aser to?
Right. I now I'm reading the next bit.
Right.
Lamibatel atzmo, im hu shelo v'chen lemi shenitbatel bishvilo. So it's aser both to the person who made it batel. If it so it's their wording is awkward, so let me put this a better way. So it's aser both to the person who owns the food and to anybody who did it on his behalf. So if you got your friend to dump the extra header in for you, your friend can't eat it either.
So to the mevatel atzmo, so asur the mevatel atzmo imu shelo.
Yeah.
Right. What is the implication of what if I'm the mevatel and I mevateled it for you? It's your thing, and I mevateled it for you. Now you can't eat it.
You can't
eat
it.
it?
Yeah.
No, you can't. V'chen lemi shenitbatel bishvilo.
I didn't
You can't eat it
myself. I'm the cook in your house, And
Oh,
I took,
Bishvilo is on your behalf, not on my behalf.
I did. You told me to
Is what
mevatel
you're
it.
saying.
It's your thing, and you told me to mevatel it. Now I did it for you. So now I'm the ken lamishin it batel bishvilo. So I did it for you. Can't have it. But wait a second. It's not mine. So I could have it actually, because that wasn't my intention. If I intended to have it, then I can't have it. But if I didn't intend to have it, I intended to give it to you because we're doing a knas here. We just want to prevent people from doing this. But here I wasn't. It's called lo nehenem mima'aseh hara. I'm not benefiting from my evil acts because my evil act was intended to benefit somebody else. So that wasn't my purpose. I wasn't trying to get this gold that I should eat it. So actually, I could eat it in that case. So let's look at the Taz Chet. The Taz Chet and Tet I want to look at. So Chet is going on Im Beshogeg Mutter. So let me just read a little bit here for you. Vatur evi zeh v'lashon zeh kaimelan kol ha'isurim sheriba alehen shogeg mutarin. All the isurim that you riba alehen mutarin, that you added to are mutar. Vehevi beit Yosef mari makom lezeh. Plugged to the Rabbi Meir. Okay, this is not important. Gabe naflu. So here we go. Gabe naflu v'nit patsu shmevi beit Yosef acharkach. So naflu is that fell in, and nit patsu I think means it broke up. Shmevi beit Yosef acharkach. B'daf zeh. V'hikshe divrei atur ahadadi. Okay, so the Tur contradicts himself. Wait, I want to go on. Ubesiman kuf yud posek the dafka b'denafal me'atzmo aval hapilu hu afilu shogeg kansu atumez. So if he put it himself, if he aval hapilu hu, if he caused it to go in afilu b'shogeg, in other words, I don't know exactly how you can cause it to go in, but you did it b'shogeg kansu atumez. So what we're talking about is this other case in Kuf Yud. Let me give you a background. In the case in Kuf Yud is talking about where you have a piece that's in there that's asur b'hana'ah. Something fell into your mixture that's asur b'hana'ah, and you don't know which one it is in the mixture. So you can take. So the question is, if one of them by mistake falls into the Dead Sea or into the sea and is lost, so is the tarovit mutar? So they say it is mutar because you're not having any hana'ah from it. The hana'ah was that extra thing, and you lost an extra thing. So one of them went, an Isser one went in, and then one of them went out. So you can kind of assume the Isser one went out. And he's saying there, ubesimin kufyud posek the dafka benafel me'atzmo aval hepiluhu afilu b'shogeg. There he says shogeg they were oser because atumezid. In other words, shogeg is not the same thing as it happened by nature. Here we're saying im b'shogeg mutter. What does that mean, im b'shogeg mutter? It means he didn't notice that the Isser fell in, and he added some het there. So it was b'shogeg. He could then eat it. I didn't know the Isser fell in, and then he pours in more. And so he said, oh, did you see the Isser fell in? He says, oh, I just revealed that. I just found that out, but now there's 60. So it's mutter. That's called shogeg. And that's not called hipil. Hipil would be it fell by the forces of nature. But over in this other case of the throwing of the mixture where one piece If I would by shogeg say, oh, I want to just take this piece out and throw it into the sea for the fishies, and then I find out, oh, but it was actually there was an isser one in there, and say, oh, good thing I threw it. It was b'shogeg, should be mutter. So we say no. We go there atumezid. Why? Because we're worried that he'll say that he did it b'shogeg, but really did it b'mezid. So we're goes there shogeg atumezid. And the Taz is asking, how come we're allowing shogeg here? We should only allow a case where it happened by itself, not by shogeg. And if you skip down to by me, it's the last two words on just before the wide lines. It says, Vahu mitam. And here he says a key point in the Taz. I don't have the text for you. You guys have the text? The Taz? So it says, Vahu mitam dekod haheter talui biribui v'ken bahahi shenafa v'nitpatsu v'kishaba'u lefanenu. When it comes before us, anuraim pitsuim, we see that it's not. Pitsuim is talking about a different case of biria, where it's a whole piece that's never buttoned. But here we see it's come in front of it's already broken. Maybe he broke it himself. Hare kishaba'u lishol, when the petitioner comes to ask, is this mutter? Hare muter. Why is it muter? Memela the kfar nit rabeh or nit patzeh, because it already has been added to or has been broken, and we see it in front of us. V'nit patzeh devar chashuv ve'im shatak, and if he would be quiet and wouldn't say a word, v'lo amar midi anan matirin lo, we would have permitted, because if we look at as we learned a couple of weeks ago or last week, we look at it as it is in front of us. And in front of us, it's batal b'shishim. And there's nothing chashuv, because anything chashuv got broken. So if he would say nothing, it would be mutter. V'lo amar midi anan matirin lo, the efshar b'shah shenafal shan ha'isr hayakach. Maybe it was like that. V'lo nitrabeh. Because we don't know if there was any ribui that occurred. Ela ihu de galilan shenitrabe achar kach, that he's the one who told us now that it happened later. So he's the one who created the whole problem. Valken vadai meheman bezeh. So if he's the one who is telling us of the whole problem, and it would have been mutter if he kept his mouth shut, the b'shogeg haya vadai boy. The boy shatik, he could have, if he wanted to, just kept quiet. And he told us it was b'shogeg. So he told us like a bad thing that had happened later. And he also told us that it's shogeg. But he could have just not said anything.
It's a migo argument.
It's exactly. It's a migo argument. It's like if a person comes to the town and says, I'm a convert, we believe him, because he could have just said he's a Jew. He's going to say that he was born not Jewish, but he converted in a Beit Din. So we believe him, because he could have just said he's a Jew, and we would have believed that too. Masha'en kain b'hahi de siman kuf yud, but it's not the same with the case of the peace. The kishaba hatarovet lefanenu anu osrimoto. We would forbid it because we'd say there's a forbidden peace in there. Ela shehu wrote zelatir, but he wants to matir it. Al pi by his mouth. Al pi eduto. Shehepil echad, that he's going to tell us that he threw one into the sea. Ubazeh enanu ma'minim lo lahakel iser mivurar. Al pi eduto nimsa shtikato lo haita materet. In other words, if he hadn't said anything, it would have been usher. So he had to say something. So therefore, we're going to suspect him. All right, that's a long piece there, but it's an interesting idea, I think, that he's saying that we believe a shogeg here. If he tells us it's shogeg, we believe him. All right, let's go on. Isaac, keep reading.
Okay, hang on. I have a cat sitting on my book. Emma, you have to move. Okay. Actually, we're getting rid of her. She has to go. Okay, so the Rema. ואסורים למוכרו גם כן לישראל, אחר שלא yehene mimena she bitlo. Okay, and it's forbidden to sell them to a Jew afterwards because you can't benefit from it, from something that was made batal. Back to the Beit Yosef, l'sha'ar kol adam mutar. Everyone else can eat it. It's only the person on whose behalf it was, or who made it batel for their own benefit, that it's asur for. Okay, back to the Rima. V'davka shenit arav yavesh b'yavesh o afilu lach b'lach. And so obviously this is when you mix dry with dry, or even wet with wet. Lamanda marshe ein omuim bo chaticha. This is the part where I got confused, so I may totally screw this up. Lamanda marshe ein omuim bo chaticha na'aseit nevela kidele ayil siman sadei beit. Aval chaticha shebel isur la mehane. שנתווסף אחר כך ההתר, תהה אמרינן בחתיכה נעשית נבלה. Okay. So if you have someone who said,
so wait a second. We're basically saying here, wait, let me start for a second. The basic point of what we're saying here is that you're getting bittul. And even if you add something more later, it can help you if it's a rabbinic thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We said that it doesn't work in Deraita, but in rabbinic Isurim, it will help, even if it's added later. And on that, the Rama says, that's only in the cases of dry and dry and wet and wet. If you don't say chanan in those cases. First of all, he's telling it, first of all, he's saying, I personally, says the Rama, I hold chanan maybe in yavish and in lach b'lach, and therefore it's chanan. And this whole thing is problematic. This whole thing wouldn't work by me. So he says, but there are those that say in yavish and lach b'lach, there is no chanan. And therefore, this whole din works. Aval, chaticha, but now he distinguishes. A chaticha shenivla, and that's what I was saying in one of my questions. There's three types of things. There's lach b'lach and there's dry and dry, and then there's this third thing, which is a piece of isser. Sorry, wait a second. A piece of isser that falls into, a drop of isser that falls into a piece of meat. Aval chaticha shebala isser lo mahani shenitfasef achar kach haheter. Because that we for sure say so there's like no, it's like saying that that's for sure. In other words, there's three categories. There's dry and wet and wet. And then there's a third category where nobody's going to say chanan. He's always not going to say chanan, which is that meat absorbs into it something that's isser. So then that whole piece is usher. If I don't know how you would have a case. If more pieces of meat came into the story somehow, that whole piece would have to be treated, not just the drop. It's a little bit of weird how to imagine how you would add to such a case. But anyway, he says, "Aval chaticha shebala iser lo mahane shitfasef achar kach haheter daha amrinan be chaticha naseh nevela." And now he says like this. He says, even if we don't say chaticha naseh nevela, like those cases of dry and dry or wet and wet that he mentioned before. Lo mahani haheter levatel ella. It only helps if it was added before it was noda tarov, before the mixture was known that it happened, that the occurrence happened. אבל אם נודע התערובת קודם, לא מהני מה שנתווסף אחר כך. But if you knew that the Isser fell in, then even in dry and dry and even in wet, Hanan would occur because of the knowledge of the observer. Hanan would occur. And then, Lo Mahani Mashinifasef Acharkach, what is added later won't help. In other words, it won't help because you have Hanan. You'd need to have 60 against that whole mixture. In other words, what he's saying is, if we go back to what Rav Landis was talking about before, about when bittul happens, what is the concept of bittul? What he is saying here, bittul is not only a physical occurrence, or it is rather a thing that happens in the mind. I have to know that this, once I know that this, this is not the case of bittul, this is the opposite of bittul. This is oser. In other words, the dry mixtures are mixing together, Isser and Heter. And as long as I still don't know about it, if more stuff happens, if more Heter comes in, I can allow the mixture. But if I know about it and I pronounce the din that it's Usser, then if more Heter comes in, it's too late. Now, I think this only makes sense because this is all a rabbinic stricture. Because, in other words, the Ramah is aware that his whole concept of Hanan happening in Shar Isurim is a Chumrah. So when does that Chumrah apply? It applies when the Posek makes it apply. And he says it's Asr. But if the Posek's not involved, or if the person doesn't know about it, so I'm not going to have my Chumrah of Hanan b'Shar Isurim. And therefore, new mixtures can help. Does that make sense? Is there questions, comments, enlightening remarks?
But doesn't he also say that that's the case for when it's Hanan Basar B'Chalav? Or is that also Derabanan? Maybe that's also Derabanan, it doesn't matter. It's just more common opinion.
Well, let's see. Yeah, I mean, okay, you're about to say, I think it's the next word. So let's read the next words. Let's see what he says. Well, actually, wait a second. No, it doesn't. But the haya tzarich hachacham hamoreh levatel iser lachkor. In other words, what does it mean? The chacham hamoreh levatel iser. The chacham that wants to mevatel an iser, he has to lachkor. He has to investigate. Im nitfasef haheter achar shenoda laachar shenoda tarovet v'lo nagu kein. But we don't do it anyway. In other words, he's never seen anybody do it. So at the end, he doesn't require you to do this. But
he justifies that in the Darkei Moshe.
What? Say it again. So he doesn't mention it here, but you saw
it justifies not checking in the Darkei Moshe.
Say it again. In the Darkei Moshe,
he justifies the fact that we don't practice checking into when they found out about it.
What's his bottom line in the dark?
Is that we assume that they let you know when they noticed, and therefore that's his rationale.
But he goes back and forth, and at the end, the last point that he makes in the Darkei Moshe is that lo nagu. I never saw anybody do it. That is his ultimate justification. Nobody does do this hakira. Now, I think it's the Taz or the Shach. I think asked your question. What about Basar B'Chalav? In other words, I see the Ramah as being internally consistent. He is saying that Noda is a factor here because we're talking about Shar Isurim. What would he say if it was milk and meat? Maybe he would say that if milk falls into meat, I don't care if it's Noda or not. Maybe he would say that. And we have to think about that. Maybe he would say, I don't care if it's Noda or not. It's Usser. The milk fell into the meat. It created Isser. Hanan happened. The only reason I can delay the Hanan here is because anyway, it's a Chumrah. And that fits very nicely. He doesn't say anything about milk and meat.
Wait, is the milk and meat not a Chumrah?
Milk and meat is not a Chumrah.
Being Hanan.
Hanan by milk and meat is Doraita. In other words, here he's talking about So he gets into this whole thing of Noda, and let me, in the
But
interest
wait,
of,
according to him, when does Noda become relevant? Because he holds Hanan in all cases.
yeah,
Not in Hefsid Reuben.
Not in Hefsid, sorry, all normal cases, right? Which means that whenever something's going to be brought before him, assuming like
well, first of all, he's not going to,
he goes through this whole back and forth
it would only
of
be in the
whether
case,
what happens if you don't hold Hanan. He holds Hanan.
what's your, what are you asking? You're asking a bunch of things.
In what case does the Ramah say, okay, it's shogeg, it's batel?
And that's shogeg. In what case does it say shogeg? It's batel. In the case of it's where it's not known, where the guy tells me I added something b'shogeg. We can't do a hakira. We're not going to do a hakira. He tells me I added something b'shogeg after it after the first thing fell in. He would permit it. He wouldn't even, only if the guy said, and I did it after I already knew that the mixture had occurred, then he might have problems. But the Taz goes the Taz goes and explains that the normal case isn't going to be like that. The normal case is going to be that a person comes and says, yeah, I added something after the mixture, and the Ramah is going to permit it because he's going to say, obviously, if he added it, it was b'shogeg. And why was it b'shogeg? Because he didn't know that the mixture happened. He didn't know that the mixture happened. If he had known that the mixture happened, then he wouldn't have done it. So I'm going to assume that it's lo no da'at harovit.
But the question is, does that apply in also for basar b'chalav?
That is a very interesting question, right? Anyone want to comment on that?
From the Darchim Moshe that it did, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it could be you're right. It could be you're right. I don't want to. It could be you're right. It's here is not talking about it. Let's leave that question for later, or maybe I'll write you something about it. But that's an interesting question. The way I explained it now, the way I explained it today, it's particularly relevant here. The Shach has a very long discussion where he rejects this whole notion of Noda at all. And if you look at the very end of the Shach on Tet Zayin, of Tet Vav, he look at the last line of Tet Vav. Mamash, the last line of the very long Shach in Tet Vav. He says, "De'en lechalech bezeh klal bein Noda olo, ela bein shogeg umezid, k'demashma b'divrei atur v'mechaber v'kol haposkim." He basically says he eviscerates, he rejects the idea of the Ramah that Noda is a relevant factor. And he brings one of his reasons for it is he says, there's many places where we have Taravot in the Gemara, and then they have Bittul, and the Gemara never offers as an answer, Kan Kodem Yediyah, Kan Acher Yediyah. The Gemara never uses this concept. In other words, it's the Ramah's own concept. I was just saying that it makes a lot of sense when you understand that Hanan is a fiction when we're talking about Shar Yisrael. It's a chumrah, and therefore we can limit it to only where it's Noda. And by Basar B'Chala, there's a lot more reason to say it occurs when it happens physically, because that's not a fiction, that's a real thing. It could be that the Darkei Moshe discusses both sides of that question. Let's go on in Vav. Here, maybe Asher, you want to read?
Hold on a second, I just lost my place. Where are we exactly?
Vav. Sif Vav.
Okay. איסור של דבריהם אין מערבים אותו בידיים כדי לבטלו, ואם עשה כן במזיד אסור. אבל אם נפל מעצמו ואין בהיתר כדי לבטלו, מרבה עליו ומבטלו. So you have something that's forbidden, and you can't mix it. You can't start mixing in other things by hand in order to, like, you can't mix in heter to nullify the isur. If you do it intentionally, it's forbidden. But if it fell on its own, and there wasn't really enough to okay, wait. Let me word this differently.
First of all, wait a
You
second. He
can't
says
put it in. You can't put it in there and
you
then
can't take
add
an
the
isser.
heter.
You can't take an isser.
But if it falls in on its own, if it fell in on its own by accident, and you see it fell in, you can add the heter. You can then add the heter to make it mutar. You can add enough to make it mutar.
But wait
But
a second.
only if
Isn't
it
this
fell in by
Noda Tarovet?
Sounds like it.
It sounds like it's Noda Tarovet. How can
Yeah,
you
sounds
add
like
to
it.
it?
But he's saying, אם נפל מעצמו ואין בהיתר כדי לבטלו, מרבה עליו ומבטלו.
Right, because it's the Rabbanan.
Right.
Shar is right because it's the Rabbanan.
Right, it's the
Okay.
Rabbanan. And
Read the Haggadah.
Okay, ויש אומרים, דאין לבטל איסור דרבנן או להוסיף עליו, כמו באיסור דאורייתא, וכן נוהגים.
So he just
there's
rejects.
some-
So he throws away the Mechaber.
Yeah, he's just saying, yeah, there's some who say you can't do that, and they're right.
Ve'en l'shanot.
ואין לשנות.
Go on.
Okay, wait, I just lost my place. איסור שנתבטל כגון שהיה 60 כנגדו, ונתווסף בו אחר כך מן האיסור הראשון, חוזר וניור, ונאסר
V'ne'asar.
Lo
Shna.
ונאסר, okay.
So so what's the case there? This is what we talked about in the Gemara.
Right.
Isser should it batel. So it's batel because we're shishim there. And now
Right.
comes more of the Isser. It has to be, notice he loves the words mina Isser harishon. It has to be the same Isser, both in type of Isser and in other words, and in flavor of Isser. Type, I mean, like if it's an Isser of notar and pigul, whatever, two different things. But it has to be the same type of Isser. Choser v'nir, then they, or another way we say that in the Gemara is matzah min et mino, that the two find each other and join up, and even though it was batel, it comes back. It joins up with the new thing that fell in, and ruins the tarovet. In other words, you have 60 and one Isser falls in. Now you have 61 of heter. Another Isser falls in of the same type. It should be 1 and 61. But we don't say that. We say it's 2 and 60. Because even though it was mutter, it's really still there. And the Isser finds it. That's only if it's the same type. Then he says, Loshna min b'mino, Loshna min b'she'eno mino.
Okay, לא שנה מינו, לא שנה שאינו במינו, לא שנה יבש, לא שנה לך.
What does he mean? Wait, does he just contradict me? What does he mean, lo shna eino mino? Is that a contradiction on me, or can you fit it together?
Well, he's saying that the what he just said has nothing. No, I don't think he contradicted you. He's saying this law is the same whether we're talking about what fell in. We're talking about the Isur that fell in.
When the Isser fell in, what did it fall into?
If it's the min b'mino that it fell into, the treif meat that fell into the kosher meat, the taste is going to be just the same. Whether it's min b'mino, whether
falls
it's
into the
min
chicken.
she'eino b'mino, right? It doesn't matter if it's treif beef and kosher beef, or pork and chicken, or yavesh or lach. It doesn't matter. The same rule applies.
So we have this concept. So the concept again is choser v'niyar.
Yeah.
Veloshna noda bentayim olo noda. So,
So whether you even knew, whether you knew it at the time, you didn't know it at the time. The law is the law.
so what does that mean, noda bentayim?
No.
What would you have said if you hadn't said that? Loshna noda bentayim or lo noda bentayim. You might have thought that if it was noda bentayim, so I could
Then
be
I'd stay
makel.
with that. But if it's low noda time, I'd say, okay, so it was all bishogeg, so I didn't know, and so.
No. But noda bentayim, what does noda bentayim do? Noda bentayim makes that 61 all mutter. It's the rabbi came and paskind and said mutter. So now I have one falling into 61 of mutter. Should be, but I could, as you might think that he's saying only when it's low noda, then it's choser in the air. But once there's a psak and it's noda and there was a psak, it's finished. It's all mutter. And he's saying, no, actually, even though there was a psak, it's still hanging in the air, and if more, it's still talui ba'avir, it's still not yet settled, and it could happen. If more isser comes in, it'll go back, even though the rabbi passes mutter. So you have a weird case where the rabbi will say it's all mutter, and then another one falls in. Oh, it's all usser. But wait a second, what fell in was only 1 in 60 to what's there. It was 1 in 61. And the rabbi and the rabbi will say, that's, well, even when I said it was mutter before, it's not 100%. Sort of contradicts what he said before about noda.
No, because he's saying that he's still saying that's only going to happen if it's still the same type of Isur that falls in.
No. But I mean, when we learned before the previous thing, we said that noda bentayim, you can't. If it was noda bentayim, we said, then if more heter falls in, it's too late. But if it's not noda bentayim, then if more heter falls in, then it can help. But here, in other words, not being noda can help, but being noda can't help. Right? Not being noda in the previous case can help. But here, where it is noda, that won't help us. Because again, it's the same concept going on. Because really, nothing really happened. When the rabbi said, in other words, there's no real chanan. You can't use, this is what he's saying. Let's get it clear. You can't use this fictitious, I'm saying this in a very extreme way to make a point. You can't use this fictitious concept of chanan in Shari Suri to create yourself a heter. The whole purpose of this fictitious concept was to cause problems. You can't say, now I've got chanan in Shari Suri, and the whole 61 is mutter. The whole 61 is mutter. So now when a new one falls in, it's 1 against 61. No, that whole concept of Hanan in Shari Surim was a rabbinic construct, and it doesn't really exist. So you have to look at it as though the contract's not there, and then it's really 2 and 60, and it's us. And that no doesn't help. You can't use my chumrah to create a kula. It's only a chumrah. This Shari Surim. Now the right. On the Taz here in 21, the Shach in 21, he brings the Ravid, which Noam referred to and we referred to in the beginning, where he says, I don't know if I can help you. The Ravid in 21 says, I don't know if you can find it. See where there says Ravid? Hey Resh Aleph Bet Chick Dalid.
How far into 21 is it?
It's about, let's see, it's the end of.
Oh wait, I was looking in the Taz. Sorry.
It's a third of the way.
Not far into it. It's like the second line, right?
No, not that one.
Oh, a different one. Never mind.
Later on, see where it says Ramban v'Haran Sof Maseket Avodah Zarah. By the way, that's on the sugya in Avodah Zarah that we looked at.
Okay, yeah. I found that.
So read there from there.
Okay. הרמב"ם והר"ן סוף מסכת עבודה כוכבים והרשב"א בתורת האמת?
No, Torah. I want to say Torah Tabayit.
Haruch, yeah.
Torah Tabayit Ha'aruch. There you go.
Okay, תורת הבית הארוך.
Ayin Sham.
עין שם.
Now read the parentheses.
אוקיי, וגדולה מזו משמע דעת הרייבד שם, ואפילו לא נודע בינתיים, אינו חוזר ונאסר. דכמה כמה בטל, ואפילו בדבר
נותן טעם.
שנותן טעם, כן.
So wait a second, read it again. This may be talking about a slightly different case, but the Ravid Sham,
הרייבד שם אומר שדאפילו לא נודע בינתיים, אינו חוזר ונאסר.
the opposite. Even if it's not no da
And
time.
the why? דכמה כמה בטל, אפילו בדבר שנותן טעם.
So the Ravid holds. We saw two strange opinions of the Ravid. First of all, we saw that he holds that it's usher to mevatel and isser lachat miduraita, and here we're seeing a second thing of the Ravid, that he's holding that he's going the other extreme, that kama is a real thing, even in Shar Isurim. Now, he's not holding that Shar Isurim is a chumrah. He's holding Shar Isurim is a real din, and kama is a real din. So, and even if it's lo noda beintaim, I feel lo noda. In other words, that's like the most possible extreme case you could have. You didn't even know it happened, but you come into your house and you see dripping blood into your soup, and you say, well, I didn't know it happened, and now in the soup there's more than a 60th of blood. So you say it's usher. So the Ravid says no, it's mutter, because each time it fell in, it was batel, kama batel. And you say, wait a minute, but I didn't know, I never paskined on each time, I never said. Doesn't matter, says the Ravid. Each time it fell in, batel. And we say, but wait a second, I taste the soup and I can taste blood. The Ravid says, I don't care. Batel, that's in what's his rationale? Does it say here?
No, he doesn't say. No, he doesn't really say.
So what do you say is his time? What's the reason for the right?
I couldn't even begin to guess.
Well, I'll relate it to a thing that you probably know. That the Ravid says in the Rambam, he says there's a famous line that he says, Kfar Shara Ruach HaKodesh Beit Midrashenu Zeh Kama Yamim, or Zeh Kama, I don't remember exactly. We already have Ruach HaKodesh in our Beit Midrash many weeks. The Ravid is a spiritual person. In other words, he's saying, if it's batel, don't bother me with reality. If it's batel, it's batel. I don't. In other words, each time once it became batel, it's batel, and reality doesn't affect. The fact that I tasted is irrelevant. It became, or I'll say it like this: it's mutter blood. That blood that you're tasting, yes, but it's mutter blood because the halacha created a bittul of that blood. So that blood became mutter blood. So you're tasting it, true, but now that blood is mutter blood. All right, we have to stop there because it's getting late. But we got the main things. We really did get the main things. There's a huge amount of material here. I'll send you out my timat. What is it? Shulchan Timot, but it's not completed. I can, if you have the Merechet Shulchan, look and see the difference. You'll see that there is a significant difference the way I do it. Well, before we go, any questions?
I just want to say Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, like we did 2 p.m. Eastern time. That's what we did, right? Will be a 30-minute halacha review on all of this. So hopefully I can fit all this into 30 minutes. I think I can do it.
Recommended.
Thank you. And record it this time.
I know I forgot. I really apologize. I forgot to record. So
I'll record it and I'll let you, and I'll have you put it up on their website and on the channel.
And I will email the link back out again, and just in case people didn't get it. So
okay. So thank you guys. I hope it was useful, interesting.
Thank you, Rav Nachum.
Very much.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Everyone.